August 2012. The Supreme Court of India drops a bombshell order that shakes every boardroom in the country. Two companies, Sahara India Real Estate Corporation and Sahara Housing Investment Corporation, are ordered to refund 24,000 crore rupees with interest to approximately 3 crore investors. The man behind all of this, Subrata Roy, a man who called himself Sahrashri, a man who built a media empire, owned a Formula One team, sponsored the Indian cricket team, a man who threw parties that Bollywood royalty attended. But here's what nobody was talking about in those glittering ballrooms: millions of small investors, mostly from rural India, UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, had quietly handed over their life savings to Sahara. Farmers, teachers, factory workers, people who couldn't spell SEBI but trusted the man smiling at them from every hoarding. And that trust, that blind, desperate trust, was about to be weaponized. This is not just a corporate fraud story. This is about power, manipulation, and how the system almost let them get away with it. Almost. Subrata Roy started small. Born in 1948 in Araria, Bihar. No elite school, no IIT background. In 1978, he started a small chit fund operation in Gorakhpur, Uttar Pradesh. By the 2000s, Sahara India Parivar had become one of India's largest conglomerates: hotels, media, aviation, real estate, sports. They co-owned the Sahara Force India F1 team. They were the principal sponsors of Team India Cricket. Sahara City, entire townships being built across the country. Roy projected himself not as a businessman but as a family patriarch. He called his employees Sathis, companions. The Sahara headquarters in Lucknow looked less like an office and more like a royal estate. Roy traveled with a convoy that rivaled state ministers. Here's what made the empire tick financially: a network of over 10 lakh field agents, mostly operating in semi-urban and rural India, collecting small deposits door to door. Optionally fully convertible debentures, OFCDs, that's the instrument they used. Translated into simple language, a bond-like product that promised attractive returns. These agents would collect 500 rupees, 1000 rupees, sometimes 5000 rupees from households that had never entered a bank. The pitch was simple: Sahara hai to safe hai. And millions believed it. By 2008, Sahara had collected an estimated 24,029 crore rupees from approximately 2.96 crore investors across India. The scale was staggering. The problem? Not 1 rupee of this was disclosed to SEBI. Here's where it gets technical, but stay with me, because this is where the real crime lies. Under Indian securities law, if a company raises money from more than 50 people through any kind of bond or debenture instrument, it is classified as a public issue. A public issue must be registered with SEBI. Prospectus filed. Accounts audited. Investors protected. Sahara's argument? Their OFCDs were private placements. They claimed they were raising money from private investors, not the public. So SEBI had no jurisdiction. It was a legal loophole they had identified and were exploiting aggressively. But the numbers didn't lie. You cannot call something a private placement when you have nearly 3 crore investors. That's more than the population of several Indian states. SEBI first flagged this in 2008 when it received complaints. It began investigating the two Sahara entities, Sahara India Real Estate Corporation Limited, abbreviated as SIRCL, and Sahara Housing Investment Corporation Limited, Shikal. What SEBI found was disturbing. These companies had issued OFCDs worth 24,029.73 crore rupees between 2008 and 2011. The investor data submitted was riddled with irregularities, duplicate PAN numbers, fake addresses, names that didn't match any government records. The ghost investors numbered in lakhs. Was the money even collected? If yes, where was it? If no, was this a book manipulation to show inflated capital? These were the questions SEBI was now asking. And Sahara, instead of cooperating, was stalling. Filing petition after petition. Challenging jurisdiction. Buying time. SEBI is not known for its aggression. It is a regulatory body, not a police force. But the Sahara case pushed SEBI chairman UK Sinha into a corner where retreat was not an option. In June 2011, SEBI passed a formal order directing Cycle and Shikal to refund all money collected through OFCDs with 15% interest. Sahara challenged this at the Allahabad High Court. The High Court stayed the SEBI order. Sahara thought they had won. They hadn't. SEBI appealed to the Supreme Court. And on 31st August 2012, this is the date that changes everything, a three-judge bench of the Supreme Court led by Justice K.S. Radhakrishnan delivered a landmark 300-page judgment. The court was unambiguous. Sahara had violated securities laws. The OFCDs were indeed a public issue. SEBI had full jurisdiction. The order, refund 24,029 crore rupees with 15% annual interest within 3 months. To put that in perspective, with interest accumulating, the total liability was now approaching 36,000 crore rupees. Sahara's response. They claimed they had already refunded most investors. They submitted what they called repayment proofs, millions of documents. But when SEBI examined them, the documents were found to be largely unverifiable. Addresses didn't exist. Signatures didn't match. The court didn't buy it. And the clock was ticking. Sahara had 3 months to pay up. They missed the deadline. That's when the Supreme Court did something India had never seen before. 4th March 2014. Subrata Roy is arrested. Let that sink in. The man who hosted prime ministers. The man whose Ambi Valley city was a township of dreams. Arrested on contempt of court charges because Sahara continued to defy the Supreme Court's refund order. Roy was taken to Tihar Jail. Not as a VIP. As an under trial. I've spoken to people who covered that day. They said the optics were surreal. The man who had created the image of India's most benevolent businessman being escorted into the same jail that houses common criminals. He spent over 2 months in Tihar. He was finally granted bail in May 2014 on the condition that Sahara deposit 10,000 crore rupees with SEBI as security. Sahara managed to arrange 5,000 crore rupees partly by selling properties, partly through other means, and Roy was released on parole. But the fundamental issue remained unresolved. The full 24,000 crore rupees was never refunded. As of my research, SEBI has recovered only around 15,000 crore rupees through various means, property sales, deposits, partial payments. Thousands of crores remain unaccounted for. And here is the question I keep coming back to: where did 24,000 crore rupees go? Was it really collected? Was it invested somewhere untraceable? Was it siphoned? The CBI has investigated. The ad has looked at money laundering angels. But a definitive, court-proven answer to that question, where is the money, remains elusive even today. I want you to stop thinking about 24,000 crore rupees as a number. I want you to think about Ramkali Devi from Varanasi. She's a widow, a retired government school teacher. In 2005, a Sahara agent, a neighbor's son, convinced her to deposit her entire retirement corpus of 1.8 lakh rupees with Sahara. She was told she would get it back with interest in 10 years. By 2015, she had received nothing. She couldn't afford a lawyer. She didn't know how to file a complaint with SEBI. She still doesn't know if she'll ever see that money. Multiply her story by 2.96 crore. That's the scale of human damage we're talking about. The overwhelming majority of Sahara investors were not wealthy. They were precisely the people who couldn't afford to lose daily wage earners, small farmers, lower middle class families in states like UP, Bihar, Odisha, West Bengal. The agents who sold these products were also victims in their own way. Many genuinely believed in the product. They had invested their own family's money. When the company unraveled, they faced the fury of their own communities. There were reports of agents going into hiding in villages across UP. Families breaking apart over lost savings. Children's education funds evaporated. Wedding savings gone. The Supreme Court case was fought in air-conditioned courtrooms with expensive lawyers. But the real trial was happening in villages where people were learning, for the first time, that trust is not a legal remedy. Subrata Roy passed away on 14 November 2023 in Mumbai after a prolonged illness. He died without fully settling the dues. The Sahara case officially remains unresolved. SEBI continues to hold recovered funds in a SEBI Sahara refund account. Investors can apply for refunds through SEBI's Scores platform. But the process is slow, bureaucratic, and many small investors, particularly the elderly and rural, don't know it exists. The legacy of this case, however, is real and important. The Sahara judgment fundamentally changed Indian securities law. The Supreme Court's ruling established beyond doubt that scale of an offering, not the label a company puts on it, determines regulatory jurisdiction. It forced SEBI to become more aggressive. It led to stricter monitoring of collective investment schemes. It is now studied in every law school and business school in India. But here's the broader lesson, and I say this as someone who has covered financial frauds for 15 years. The Sahara fraud didn't survive on complexity. It survived on trust. The trust of people who believed that a big name, a smiling face on a hoarding, a neighbor's recommendation was enough due diligence. It wasn't. Before you invest a single rupee anywhere, ask one question: is this registered with SEBI or RBI? If the answer is unclear, or if the agent gets defensive, walk away. That one question could have saved 3 crore families from a decade of pain. Remember that. 24,000 crore rupees. 3 crore investors. One man's empire. And a Supreme Court that finally said enough. The Sahara case is a mirror held up to every Indian who has ever invested based on trust alone. The system failed these people, but the system also, eventually, fought back. If this episode made you think differently about where you put your money, share it with one person who needs to hear it. Subscribe. Because next week, we go deeper into another case that will change how you see corporate India forever.